Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about study tips and exam preparation advice for medical coders. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay, if you are getting ready to get prepared to take a certification exam through either the American Health Information Management Association or AHIMA, or the American Academy of Professional Coders or AAPC, this video is for you. Okay, so let us begin. A lot of people have been asking me lately, Blue, how long do you take to prepare for a certification exam for medical coding? What are some of the study tips that you have? What advice can you give me? I've done this type of video several times, but I'm going to do this one because it's, so that way it'll be newer. But I want you guys to know that whatever certification that you're sitting for, the first place that you should go is directly to the website of the association that is offering this certification and look at the candidate handbook for that certification exam. That candidate handbook will tell you all of the books that you need. It'll at least let you know which one is what you need for that exam. And because the different certifications require different books, okay? So I just want to put that out there. And it will also tell you what the domains are of the exam, what subjects are being covered on this exam. If you're looking at the candidate handbook and you see this list of domains and there's something that you don't understand, like reimbursement, but you've learned everything else while you were in school, you learned about, or self-study, because you can self-study, you learned about medical terminology, you feel pretty confident about the coding, you feel pretty confident about the procedures and things like that, so you're okay there, but you don't really feel confident like on reimbursement and things like that, then you need to visit websites like CMS.gov, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They have the whole Medicare Learning Network on there, and it's got lots of free resources that you can use to help you to study. I talk about that website a lot, guys. This is a big deal in our industry. And so to know this stuff is very important. And even reading this stuff is going to help you because it's going to help you with speeding up your reading times, okay? Because you do have to, these are timed exams. So you do have to be able to get through these in a pretty steady pace. You don't want to get stuck on anything just because you're reading too slow, okay? So even practicing reading, from CMS is just as fine because it's going to help you anyway. And if you if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I am a strong advocate of reading the coding guidelines at least once per week while you are studying. And if you're reading them from the book itself, it is 64 pages because it's front and back or something like that. But you are taking the time to really look at those. It's going to help you. And the more that you read them, the more that you're going to be able to recall these things quicker. The goal when you're studying is not to memorize, because you don't want to weigh yourself down mentally memorizing things, right? You want to get to a point where you can recall. That is the whole point, is being able to recall. These certification exams are meant to test your knowledge. They are not meant to be like, well, this is something that is so far out there. It is meant to cover the domains, whatever's in those domains. So it's not going to be like a huge surprise. Obviously, we don't know the specific questions, right? But we do know the domains. So that's going to give us a clue as to what we need to make sure that we study. So if you're looking at those online, you'll be able to figure that out, right? Like, okay, well, I know that I'm going to have to study about reimbursement, or I know I'm going to have to study about, inpatient or outpatient coding, whatever the case is. So that way that you know, like, where to put more of your efforts, okay, with whatever subject was too tricky for you. If you were in a school, if you took a program and, you have to go over some of those materials again, just do that. If it is too confusing for you, you can reach out to your instructor, or you can try to find a tutor. I am a tutor. I leave my rates in the description box below if you are interested in that. And if you don't want me, that's fine. Go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has tons of medical coding tutors as well. So sometimes you may just need somebody to just explain these things to you, all right? And even though you're getting ready for your exam, it never hurts, you know, to kind of go over the things that you weren't really sure of, okay? But I will also say this too, because this is something I've been hearing a lot lately. I'm going to take my state boards for medical coding. State boards. State boards, when I hear that, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Guys, we don't take state board exams. We take National Association certification exams. That's what we take. This means we are certified. Once we get our certifications, we are certified with the National Association, either the American Health Information Management Association or the American Academy of Professional Coders. Either one of these, okay? This means we can go anywhere with our credential and we don't have to register with the state. We are not like doctors or nurses or lawyers where you have to register with states. You know, we just have our certification once we get it, and we can go any state and still use it. So that is something to know whenever you are getting ready to talk about taking your certification exam. Make sure you're saying, I'm just taking my certification exam. Because I know when I hear people, and sometimes it's coming from programs, and I'm like, what? Guys, no. Because people get confused when they hear state boards, because then they think that if they move, they have to register with the other state or take another exam. And that's just more anxiety that's unnecessary because of wrong information going out. So I'm just saying. But moving right along. When you are getting ready to prepare to study for your final exam or your certification exam, you want to make sure that if you finish a program, that you're not waiting 6 months, you're not waiting a year later to take your certification exam. That's too long, because whatever you learned in school is going to be fresh in your mind at least 1 to 2 months afterwards. If you get outside of those 2 months, that stuff's going to start to fade away. So the closer you can get to when you finish your program, the better off that you'll be. Because like I said, the more time you spend out of the program, and if you're not really studying, then that's not going to help you. If you are studying, then you're fine, because then it's staying fresh in your mind and you're still, you know, getting more confident, and that's good. But if you're doing other things and life's getting in the way, trust me, it's real quick to start forgetting that stuff, and you don't want to do that. I've heard of people who finish a program for medical coding, and then they say they never felt like they were confident enough to take the certification exam, so they never took it. And I'm like, you basically wasted time. You basically did, because if you're not taking your certification exam right after, did you study? Did you try to do anything so that you can actually get something out of what you put into the school, the money that you put into the school? I know sometimes people get registered for these classes, and the school teaches them almost next to nothing. You know, we are all adults here. We can say it. There are predatory schools out there. It's not unheard of. However, if that does happen and you find yourself in a situation where your school is not helping you, that's when you have to kind of pick yourself up by the bootstraps and say, okay, then I got to learn this on my own. I got to be able to study this. I got to be able to try to work through this, because I'm in this situation for a reason. I wanted to get into a new career, and I wanted to do something different with my life. So time to just get in there and try to figure this out. And again, if you can't figure it out, either go to the association. Sometimes they have like those message boards. Try to connect with somebody there. But you really want to be careful when you're trying to connect with people, because you want to make sure that they're going to be positive forces in your life. I don't recommend Facebook medical coding groups. I say that a lot, and I will keep saying it, because many times, now not all of them, but many times Facebook medical coding groups can be negative. And I've heard from more than one person, I'm not going to do medical coding anymore because of what I heard. Or I dropped out before for medical coding because I was in a Facebook medical coding group, and it was just too negative, and I got scared and I dropped out. So don't get involved with that. You want to make sure that you're going to start focusing, and you're going to focus on what you need to do in front of you, which is prepare for the certification exam. I do recommend getting the certification exam prep books, but I will say this. Some people have written me and said, I'm upset because I got this certification exam prep book and none of those questions were on the exam. They're not supposed to be. Those certification exam prep books are designed to go through like the practice motions. It's not what's going to be covered on the test, but it's going to give you like the motions of the test. So that way you can practice, you can go however long that exam is. I always recommend that too. However long the exam is, that you carve out that time so that you're alone and you're by yourself. You don't have your cell phone. You're not being bothered. You're not being bothered, and you're sitting down taking this test. So that way you can get yourself into that right mode and that right frame of mind. Because a lot of times what happens when you take your certification exam, this is what happens to a lot of people, is that they panic and they start to freeze and things like that. You know how they always tell you, like in an emergency situation, don't panic. That's the first thing they say is don't panic, or there's like anything happening, don't panic. Try to focus on what you need to do. In the situation with certification exams, this is no exception. But sometimes people allow themselves to get so worked up that they just completely panic, and everything and all that hard studying that they did just falls away because they're panicked. These tests are designed to find out what you know. You've gone through an entire program, or you've gone through your self-study program, and you were able to get through, right? And you were able to learn a lot. So this means you should be able to not cakewalk technically, but just walk through this test with no issues, because it's just going to test you. Are you going to know everything, every single answer on that test? No, because nobody does, unless you're really good. But if you find yourself during your test that you can't figure something out, do your best to do process of elimination and go from there, and just pick the most closest answer that you think it could be. Don't get hung up on questions. That's another point I'm just going to make too. But I didn't want to make sure I didn't forget that. Don't get hung up on questions. Pick something and move on. Go with your first instinct, because a lot of people will sit there and argue with themselves, and then tick, 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 there goes the clock. So you don't want to run out of time. So whatever you do, trust your first instinct, because usually that's the correct answer, right? How many times have we all done that? I should have said that. I was thinking it and then I went against myself. Don't do that. You want to make sure that you just go with whatever you have that you think it is right away. Okay. Get familiar with your books. People don't take me seriously, I think, when I say this. Review your books. The ICD-10-CM, the CPT book, the Hicks-Picks book. If you're taking an inpatient side test, then you need to review the ICD-10 PCS book. Review the books and just go through them so that you know and you have practice and you can feel your way out of that book like that. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through my books and just opened the book and I was right where I needed to be. And I don't have tabs. I don't use tabs on my books. I will say that too. Tabs is a personal choice. But to me, I came up in a time where you do not tab your books, because those books had to be clean going into those exam rooms. So that was a thing that, and I'm going to tell you guys that too, because a lot of people will say, should I write notes in my book? And no. The book already has the answers. It doesn't need you to add anything to it. Because if you're sitting there looking at all this writing and all this kerfuffle all over your pages, when you're trying to sit there and take a certification exam, it's just going to mess with your head. So my advice is to do as minimal writing as possible, because there's rules about writing in the books. So again, depending on which association you're going through. Now, AHIMA says that you cannot have excessive writing, like all of this coding clinics. You can't write anything like that in there, okay? But they want to make sure that those books are clean, that the tabs that you use come with the book. Now, people have tried to argue with me about this. It's in the guidebook. It's in the candidate handbook that those tabs cannot be handmade. It literally says it in black and white. I'm going to bring you guys as good of information as I possibly can, and I would never share something that I wouldn't do myself, which is, for me, I do not have my books tabbed. You know, to me, I think if you are tabbing your books is because some people say it's easier and it's faster. But if you are practicing, and if you have been practicing like with workbooks and actually doing exercises and things like that, you're going to get so fast with the book that the tabs are going to get in your way. And so I'm just saying, because sometimes people insist on having those tabs because they think that they need them. And in all actuality, when you're doing a lot of those exercises, it'll be natural for you. Okay, I'm just saying on that one. But yes. That's something that I just recommend myself, because to me, the tabs get in the way. I did do a demonstration video, and I will leave those links in the description box below on how I did it for the CPT manual, because the CPT manual by the AMA does come with its own tabs, and so those are fine because they come with the book. But I'm just putting that out there so that way you guys know. When it comes to preparing for these certification exams, it's really going to depend on you and how much time you want to spend. But I never recommend going over 2 hours at a time when you're studying. You have to keep it at a bearable amount, so that way that you don't burn yourself out. Do not cram. Do not cram the night before. People will cram all the way up until the last minute. You know what happens when you cram? It stresses you out. And when it stresses you out, you know, how can you be able to perform on this test if you are stressed out? So relax. If you were able to get to the program, there's no reason you can't be able to get through a certification exam. And sometimes people have better training than others, so it really all depends. But it's on the coder as well, or the future coder, to make sure that they are studying like they should. And again, if you don't understand something, reach out, try to find a mentor, somebody that can help you. There are also free websites for practice on questions, coding questions and things like that. JustCoding.com. That is the #1 website that I will recommend. This is not an ad for Just Coding, and I talk about that all the time, but guys, use that. It's free. They have a free subscription and they have a paid subscription. And now I recommend going through and doing those. But I also recommend getting the exam prep books because they have the answers in them as well. So that way you can work through those workbooks or work through those practice exam books. And that way you can see if you're on the right track. And again, if you're lost on a particular subject, if maybe CPT coding is not as strong for you, or maybe some of the diagnosis coding gets you a little confused, concentrate there. But you're never going to be 100% confident walking into that room. So if you're waiting on that, you're going to be waiting for an awful long time. You have to be able to trust what you've learned, trust what you know, and try not to get nervous. Try not to overthink, and try not to panic, because that's the only thing that's going to ruin everything is if you panic. You can do it. I believe that if anybody wants to do something, they're able to do it. And they're not going to let anything stop them. And everything else is, if they don't really want it, if they don't feel motivated to study or anything like that, then they don't want this bad enough. When you really want to do something, you'll find a way. There's not going to be anything that will stop you. When I took my CCA exam years ago, when I took my CCA exam, I have my Ccs-P now. But when I took my CCA exam years ago, you know, there was 34 people in my class, and I was the only one to pass the first time. And every single one of those people, now that I think about it, was so nervous about the test. Was I nervous too? Yes. But at the same time, I kept having to tell myself, I can do this. And there's a difference there, because they always tell you mentally, you got to get yourself together, because either way, you know, a test is a test. And it's not going to do anything. It's paper, or it's on the computer, you know, and it's just going to see what you know. But Look at everything, look at the details. Make sure that if you need to do process of elimination, that you're doing process of elimination and you're just picking the best answer. But again, don't get hung up on it, because if you're going to try to shoot for like a perfect 100 score, you're going to stress yourself out even more. You just need to pass. You have more time to learn other things later on, but you just need to pass. So the moral of the story is, do not cram. Do the best that you can with what you know. Again, you're never going to be 100% confident walking into that room, but you have to be able to trust yourself. And if you don't have confidence, at least have trust in you and in what you've learned in your study times and everything like that. Make sure that you're looking at those things. Make sure you read the coding guidelines. I'm going to harp on that. I'm going to keep harping on it, because it's not memorization. It is just simply reviewing it till you can sort of start to recall it, because that's how we're able to learn our favorite lyrics on the songs, right? When you start to hear your favorite song, then you know all the words by heart, and it's usually like a couple of times after a repetition of a couple of times, and then you're good, because you remember the lyrics of the song because you've heard it before and you can repeat it. It's the same thing with reading the coding guidelines. So that way you can think, oh yeah, I remember that. That's in the coding guidelines. Let me look it up. So again, that's my advice when it comes to preparing for the certification exam. Don't wait too long, guys. Don't wait too long from when you finish your program to when you go to sit for that certification exam. At least 2 months. 3 months is on the outside. 3 months is really pushing it. But if you need that full 3 months, then by all means go for it. But it should be no more than 3 months after you finished your program that you should sit for your certification exam. The sooner you do, the better off you are, because the entire time that you're studying and that you're in the program, you're already preparing yourself for the certification exam. I'm just saying. So again, go with those resources, and there's plenty of free resources out there, guys. You got to take advantage of them. JustCoding.com is one of them. And it's got free coding exercises on the website. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I'm going to see y'all on Monday. And I thank you for watching. And please like, subscribe, share, guys, because this really does help me. And I will see y'all on the next episode. Bye.